Hey, you guys, welcome to my channel. Welcome to another episode of this Piscean Reports. How's everybody doing? Hopefully, you guys are doing good. For those of you new to my channel, welcome aboard. For those of you who are returning, welcome back. All right, so a lot of you guys know that the other day I was having a conversation in here, home, about spirituality. Not even spirituality. Well, spirituality, religion. I was posing some very serious questions. And just having the conversation in the house, I found out that there are a lot of people who are kind of upset with some of the things I said. But I would like to put the conversation that I had in my home on video. And Spirit guided me to do that and say, you know what, it's time. It's time that we started having conversations like this. So, what's crazy is I don't even know where to start. I would love to be that person that just gives you guys these, this well thought out, well formatted, perfect little thing. But I feel it would be best if I just do like I did last time and just say what was in my heart and then go from there. Okay. So I had I was talking about religion, and I had posed some questions in regards to religion that I don't think people are asking. And I think that is the big thing. Okay. Um, I don't think if you're religious, I don't think you care to ask. And that's what I find most interesting about the whole about religion in general, because religion requires you only to do. Religion doesn't require you to think. Religion doesn't require you to ask. You damn sure better not ask. Okay? There are a lot of groups out there where if you even think about posing any questions to the structured, the book, the map, the structured, whatever it is that they align with, if you even think about asking it, you're usually ousted, ostracized from whatever group it is. And I just wanted to pose the question of why, you know. I started by talking about a TV show that I saw. There was a young lady, and it was they were essentially talking about this woman. She was with Presbyterian Church, and as I'm watching the show, I noticed that in this particular church, you didn't ask anything, you didn't question anything, you just went along, you just did. Okay. There was a story of a young lady, and she was in church. She was in the church, very much in the church, And one day she meets a young man, and he invites her out. She said, "I got to go to church," and he's like, "No, come on, go with me. Come on, let's go hang out." And bottom line, essentially, he ends up talking this young lady into going out with him, and eventually they get to the point where they engage in sex, and the young lady ends up getting pregnant. And the young man that got her pregnant didn't want anything else to do with her. He stopped contacting her. Once she said she was pregnant, he stopped contacting her. And she was embarrassed and ashamed and the whole nine. And she went to church, this church. And rather than, you know, saying to this young lady, it's okay. You made a mistake. It's okay. We're all human. Everybody makes mistakes. God loves you. Your church family loves you. Instead of them, sympathizing with this young lady's problem, everybody in the church looked down on her. In the video, in the movie, the show, whatever, they show them, she's holding her baby, she's kind of got her head down and she looks over and she sees them looking over and they're leering at her and making her just feel like the worst of the worst. Like I said out loud, when I was talking about it, I said, these people stopped short of giving this young lady a scarlet A. It was terrible. And I was really angry. I was put off by that because I was like, this is the church. Like she made a mistake. She's a young lady. She made a mistake. And instead of the church wrapping their arms around her, they made her feel like, she was a whore, like she was the worst person on the planet. And rather than leaving this church, she continued to stay with them. And the pastor of this church says to this young lady, God told me that in order for you to be forgiven, you are to marry my son. And I was like, what? Like what? And what blew my mind is that she did it. She did it. You just to get into the good graces of get back into the good graces of this church, she chose to marry the pastor's son. And I was absolutely amazed because, of course, the first thing that was in my head was why, and I thought to myself, I thought back to Mother Mary. When the Father came to her and said, not even the Father, the Holy Spirit came to her and said, listen, we want you to give birth to the Messiah. And I said to myself, and I'm imagining Mother Mary saying, wow, this could not come at a more inconvenient time. Like I'm supposed to be getting married soon, I'm not supposed to know a man. And they said, you won't know a man, the Spirit is going to come upon you and you will become pregnant. And she said, okay, well, let your will be done, let thy will be done. And it happened, right? And what was interesting is, they went to Joseph as well to let him know she did not sleep with a man, And so I thought to myself, like, did this young lady even think to herself, you just automatically assume that this man, just because he's behind the pulpit, you're just supposed to take everything he says as gospel. And it blew my mind that this old man basically just told you, if you want to be forgiven, God says, if you want to be forgiven, you need to marry my son. And she did it. And it blew my mind. Nobody's asking why. Nobody's questioning. They just do, and that brought about even more questions when I watched that happen later on in the show. There's this woman who's the pastor ends up, he was an old man, and so he ended up getting dementia, and so his son took over the church, and so the son they went from talking about praising God to him being God, and nobody questioned it. They just went along, and again, blew my mind. How is nobody nobody questioning? Nobody's thinking about it, and he's changing everything. Not kind of sort of everything. He's making everybody give up more money out their pocket. He's telling the young ladies it's okay to wear jewelry now, you can wear shorter skirts. And so this one lady in the church is noticing the changes, and she's noticing how the preaching was going from preaching about God to him being God and him being the Father and him being the be all end all, and what he says go. And then nobody questioned it. They just went along. And so this young lady, her husband was tired of giving up, because it got to the point where everybody in the church is giving up all their money, and the church is doing great, but the congregation isn't. They're poor. They're taking on 2 and 3 jobs just to keep food on their table, just to take care of pay their bills. And so this man comes forward and he goes in and he says, he questions it. He says, I'm a little irritated. I'm a little upset. Why do I have to keep giving up so much money to you? And this pastor who now has everybody thinking he's God. This pastor essentially brought three of his goons in. They're members of the church, but they might as well have been goons because these three men came in and they beat the crap out of this man and sent him back home, bloodied and beaten. This was the church. And I was shocked. And so he goes home, and his wife said, "What happened?" He said, that they said God said that I deserved this." And she was shocked. And she was like, "Don't you see this is a cult? Like, you're not seeing this. You're not seeing none of this, right?" So she gets mad, and she goes in and she goes to question the father. I mean, the head of the church, this man. And his response was, he got up, he went behind her, he closed the door, he locked it. You see him pull off his belt and find out later on he beat her and then raped her. You see what I'm saying? And sent her back home. He was that confident nothing would happen. I can rape you and beat everybody. He would tell everybody that it's okay. God said it's okay for him to beat their children. And they went along with it. You see, and my mind is blown how people can just take what a man says as gospel and just go along with it. Nobody questions, nobody thinks, nobody asks. They're so, and that's why, and I don't understand. The thing about religion is, I said, and maybe for some people, the only reason I could think anybody would even bother with religion is because they feel they have a need to want to belong. Maybe they have a need to belong, a need to fellowship. That's the only thing I could think. It can't be because you following a book, because clearly this man was on a whole nother level. He was doing the most insane things. And then ultimately that man comes back and he tells him, the one that he beat the crap out of, that your wife is a problem and you need to do something about it. And he ends up killing his wife in the name of church, in the name of the Lord, in the name of... And it blows my mind. And so I saw that, and there was another show where there's this white man who went to India, and he spent time with Tibetan monks, and so he comes back and he tells everybody that they said that he is the not Messiah, but he's the head of this now spiritual Buddhist group, and once again, these people fell into it. This man, they didn't question anything he says. He says that's what happened, then okay, and we're now going to follow him, and we're going to worship him, we're going to listen to what he says, and then nobody questions anything. And this man ends up falling. He found a girl that he thought was cute, and he decides to tell everybody that God said she's a goddess, and she is now to be respected, and the whole nine. And in their little spiritual group, they went along. They said, "Oh my gosh," and they did exactly. All of a sudden, because he said it, she isn't, and he basically just did that because he wanted to get with her, and he did, and he ended up getting with her in a romantic sense. And he started to develop a wandering eye, and he's looking at other women in the church, and she sees that, and she sees him flirting with other women and the whole nine. And at one point, this man who's supposed to be this spiritual leader has them at one point has a get together where there's this disco ball going, and everybody's drinking, and he tells them that spirit said that it's okay for them to drink. And then at another point he says it's okay for them to engage in sexual activity with one another, and they start doing it. And I'm like, nobody questions anything. Nobody dares to ask, why are we doing this? I don't think this is right. I don't think this is supposed to happen. And it just blows my mind. And it brings me to that point of, why does nobody ever question anything when it comes to religion? And even in spirituality. And this man was trying to tell them that he's putting them on the fast track to spirituality. And I said that there's no such thing as a fast track to spirituality. And it's not. Okay, think about the Dalai Lama. He's the 14th Dalai Lama, right? And he's 90 or 92 years old. And this man is not someone who would have people come up to him and say, let me put you on a fast track to spirituality. Why should you go years and years and years worshiping and praying and meditating when you could just do this? He would never do that. He would never do that. And these people didn't question anything. They just did it. And it amazes me that, and these are extreme examples, but at the same time, you see so many churches. I was talking about how there's this one church that at one point when I was young, I was in my early 20s. I don't think I had my kids yet, but I don't think so. And well, there was once when I went to the Catholic church, and I had my kids at that point. But before then, I went to a church which I now know, I guess, is Presbyterian. I didn't know that. I just saw a beautiful church on the outside. I wanted to know God. I wanted to get to know, I wanted to find my place in the world. And so I went into the church. Week one, I went into the church. Everybody was looking at me like I was something they scraped off the bottom of their shoe. And I had no idea why. And they could barely get through service. There were so many people looking at me, and they're looking at me like that, and I'm like, okay, maybe they all know I'm new. Maybe that's it. Week two, I go in, and both these weeks I'm wearing pants. I didn't know. I was not aware that this particular church, you're supposed to wear a dress. I had no clue. No clue. And week two, I came in, and the same thing. Everybody's looking me up and down and whispering and the whole nine. And the pastor is sweating and wiping his brow and looking like it's all he could do to keep from saying anything as well. And I thought the whole thing was so bizarre. But nobody would come to me and say anything. Nobody. Week three, now everybody is really starting to become vocal. And so at one point, this lady walks up to me by the end of service. This lady walks up to me and she says, she said, you probably don't notice, but here we wear dresses. We don't wear pants, to church. And I was shocked. I was like, this is why everybody's looking at me. This woman didn't come to me and she didn't say, hey, first, welcome to the church. Welcome. We're happy to have you. But I just need to let you know that at this particular church, the women wear dresses. Had she came to me in that way, I would have said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I apologize. This is my first time. And we would have probably started up a very pleasant conversation. I probably would have kept going. But when she came at me with that, look, you need to understand something. Here, we wear dresses. Women don't come up in here wearing pants. She came at me with so much attitude. I said, I'm so sorry. And I excused myself and I never went back, because I was, and the whole time I was under the belief of what I kept thinking, whatever happened to come as you are. Come as you are. You're supposed to be seeking God. What's with all the rules? Everywhere you go, somebody's got rules. You're supposed to do this and do that and eat this and take that and say this and say that. And I found, and the more I went out, the more frustrated I became, because I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to find the Father. I'm trying to know God. But you got to, in order to attend any of these groups, any church, it didn't matter whether it was Catholic, it didn't matter if it was Presbyterian, it didn't matter if it was Baptist, it didn't matter. There's a rules, and you're not to question anything, and I noticed that as well. And that's what I find bizarre. Why can you not question anything? You're just supposed to go along. And when it comes to religion, you're just supposed to go along. Spirituality, at least that particular one, you're just supposed to go along. Or with any spiritual, situation, I guess, you were just supposed to go along. The spirituality that I was taught when I had my awakening, I was showed something completely different. And as I started, on my path, I started asking questions. I started seeing things, and I wanted to pose those questions to you guys. I talked about those who just over the summer, those people who thought that they were going to be raptured. And why did they think that? Because a man, once again, this man just tells you, God told me that this is the day that we're going to be raptured. You didn't question it. You didn't think about it. God didn't say nothing to you. He said it to him. And because he said it to this man, you just automatically took it as gospel. And then we all saw what happened. Those people, God bless them. God bless them. These people were giving away their money. They gave away their homes. They gave away cars, everything. They gave away everything. I remember hearing this lady say she was leaving pamphlets all over the place in the neighborhood, so that when she was raptured, they would know what to do when all of those who were raptured were gone. And that whole concept of the rapture, that's another question that I had. I I don't understand what would make you the whole belief system behind the rapture. I told a story of my grandmother. Once I told it when I first started my spiritual path, because I wanted people to know everything that I have seen and witnessed and known, so that when I come forward and I tell you guys what I have seen and what I've known, you would know. You know what I mean? This is why I think I do. This is why I believe. This is what I've seen. This is what I've experienced. This is what happened. You know. And there was I told that story about how my grandmother had passed away, and my uncle came to my house one day and he had some of her things. He wanted to give them to me, and I was like, I really don't want to do that. But he insisted on giving them to me. And one of the things he gave me was her fan, and it had her name on it. And I said, okay, I guess. And so I had never, I think I had to work or something. I can't remember, but for whatever reason, I missed my grandmother's funeral. Yeah. And so I did not see what she was wearing. I nothing, right? And so one night I go to bed, and my child liked to sleep with the TV light on. And so when he was young, and back in the day, I would leave the TV light on. And so one night I was sleeping, and as I go to turn over, like I said, now there's light in the bedroom. And as I go to turn over, I saw my grandmother, and she's standing by her fan. I was shocked, It scared me, honestly, because my grandmother was someone who always had a very stern face. And so here's this stern face. And my first thought is, oh my God, she's mad at me that I have her fan. And I remember taking off, running, down to the living room to wake up my daughter's father and tell him what's happening. My grandma's here. Oh my God, And I remember trying to wake him up, and he said something. I won't say what he said. And I looked at him and I went, what? And I said, no, wake up. And then when he woke up, I was so scared to tell him what I told him, because I didn't think he would believe me. And my son is down there. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I said, never, nothing. I get up and I run back down there to where my son is. And I get in the bed, and I look over where I saw her, and she was gone. But what I want to say, and this is very important, and this is why I spoke on the rapture first, because everybody in the instance of the rapture, if what they say is true, those from the dead will rise up, And I want to say this: I saw my grandmother. I saw what she had on. I saw how she looked. Okay, I remember my grandmother had very long hair. She was mixed. Nobody's ever talked about in the family, but I believe she's a product of rape, because she had very straight white hair, but it was gray and long, and she had it pulled to the side, and there was a bow at the end. It was braided, and there was a bow, and I think it was a little blue bow, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, the point of what I'm trying to tell you is, when I saw my grandmother was not dirty. Okay, she didn't crawl up out of the grave and through the dirt and out and then come and find me and see me. She was not dirty. She was whole and she was clean. So there's two things about the rapture that and religion, that whole thing, that I have questions about. Okay, number one, if we're being raptured up, why was my grandmother not dirty? I mean, why was she clean? She was clean. If she was being raptured, if that whole rapture thing is supposed to happen, that you're supposed to come from out of the earth, out of the dirt, and be raptured up. And my grandmother, and the second thing, why the whole point of being raptured thing is, they say that, those who are dead are going to, rise up and become whole again in heaven. My grandmother was whole. She was clean and she was whole. So no, I do not believe that you are raptured up. And then here's my other question. Why would, this is God. This is our Father, the supreme being. And he can make you whole. Why would he need to take your body, your broken, battered? Because if you died from something. Did you die in an accident? Did you die, overweight? Did you have cancer? Was your body riddled with cancer and the whole nine? Why would he need to take your body up and make you whole? This is the Father. You already whole. If anybody has ever seen the episode, the TV show I Survived Beyond and Back, a lot of those people say they saw their loved ones, and when they see their loved ones on the other side, or when they come to them, they're whole. They're whole. And they're younger. They're back to, there's no need. They weren't raptured up. They were whole. So what is the point of being raptured up? What if that makes no sense? And that's what I question, okay? This book, this abridged edition was put in by a man who says this is what's going to happen. Nobody questioned it. Nobody questioned it. To the point to where one man wrote it and said that there's going to be a rapture, and nobody questioned it. Everybody went along with it. They all bought it. And then here comes part 2 of that. Why would God need to do that? If you're going to be whole when you're in heaven, I told people when you die, I know for a fact, lots of people know for a fact, and a lot of these people are so afraid to talk about it because what do they say? Don't say anything. People are going to say you're crazy. I saw my grandmother. I had a friend tell me he never knew his was it his uncle? Never knew his uncle. He died. My friend was Mexican. And so he saw there was a funeral. He was a young boy, and he saw this man sitting over in the corner, very old world garb, old world Mexican garb, the whole nine, the sombrero, just very old school garb, right? To the point to where he went over, he's looking at him. He sees the man looking at him and smiling. So he goes over to his mom and he's shaking her and she goes, "What, honey, what?" And he said, "Who's that man?" And she said, "What man?" He said, "That man sitting in the chair." And she said, "What man sitting in the chair?" He said, "Him." And then she's looking, there's nothing there. And she's looking at him and so she's thinking maybe her son has lost it. And so she says, "Well, what does he look like?" And he describes her brother to a T. Never met him before in his life. Never seen pictures of him. And yet he was able to describe him to a T. And it just blows my mind that anybody, that you could just come in and say, God told me on this day we're going to be raptured. And nobody questioned it. They got excited. They bought it. They sold their shit. They gave away everything. It was insane, the things that these people did. And to see them standing up there, they thought maybe if I raise my voice to the heavens, it'll come and it'll happen. And I see these people, God bless them, and they doing it. And they doing it. And they're all, ah. And it was sad. It's sad. And so I have questions. And I think that people are angry not because I'm wrong, but because I dare to ask questions. I almost want to say because I'm right. I saw my grandmother. Lots of people have seen their loved ones on the other side whole. So why would they need to be raptured up? Why would God even need your broken, battered, dead body when your soul is what goes on the other side? It's not your body, it's your soul that transitions on the other side. And when you're on the other side, you can be whole again. When they go see their loved ones and they see them and they're whole and they're so happy, to the point to where they don't even want to leave. They don't want to go back, but they go, it's not your time. You got to go back. And you got to go back. But they're like, I don't want to, please. And they send them back anyway. And then they live to tell that story, And so this is what I'm saying. I have questions. And if anybody wants to challenge my questions, you're welcome to do so. But I know what I know, and I've seen what I've seen. I've seen my grandmother. I saw her whole, to the point to where one day I got enough nerve to tell my mother what I saw. And when I described my grandmother to her, when I told her, she was looking at me, she was staring. And then she said, "What does she have on?" And I described what she had on. My mother's mouth fell open, And she's like, "Oh my God," like that's what she had on when she transitioned over to the other side. You know, I had a friend who passed away when he was young, and I had a psychic. I called a psychic line one time, and there was this woman, and she said that you have somebody here. They want you to know they're here, and she said that this person says, you know me, and she said it just like I would expect when I figured out who it was. Her saying it like she said it made total sense. He said, you know me. You know me. And I said, what, really? And she said, yes. He said he died. He said he died young, and he said he died at night. And I knew exactly who she was talking about. And it blew my mind. And there was a period in my life that I was going through, and it was absolute hell. And he said, I was the one who was keeping you, who was keeping you sane. I was the one who was keeping you whole. I was protecting you. I was comforting you when you was going through that period. You know what I mean? So I don't question anything. I know what I know. I've seen what I've seen. And when I go to question, I was offended. I was angry that this church did not think, people want to belong so bad that you willing to do something that just makes no sense. These are the same people who look down on you. These are the same people who damn near branded you you with the scarlet A, but you're so desperate to belong that you're willing to just let this man say, I want you to marry my son. God said you're supposed to marry that son. God didn't connect with her, just like the Spirit connected with Mother Mary and said, this is what we're going to have you do. And she said, okay, because she heard them and she obeyed. Didn't nobody go to this young lady? Why would you do something just because somebody else said it? I had a question. You see what I'm saying? But ain't nobody got no answers. Rather, they're angry that I dared to question what the hell was going on. Like, why would you do that? Why would you make that young lady feel so bad? Why would you not? You're her church family. Why would you not wrap your arms around and say, it's okay, honey. Everybody makes mistakes. God loves you. God forgives you. We're going to get through this. Your church family will help you. They didn't do that. They looked down on her. They made her feel less than, to the point to where in order for her to feel a part of everything again, we need you to marry this person. And she did it. Didn't ask, didn't question, just followed, just did. I then posed the question of those who think it's a good idea to, create these bunkers. And I will say it once, everybody seems to be under the impression I'm being so mean. How dare you? Who do you think you are to question us? Who do they're so angry. But I'm like, you're not angry because I'm wrong. You're angry because I'm asking questions that you're not ready to give an answer to. Why would you do that? Why would you mistreat that young lady? Why would y'all do that? Why would you follow a man who would rape and talk him into murdering his wife and this other dude who convinced everybody that this woman was a goddess and they just accepted it and went along with it. And then took it a step further and began drinking. Y'all supposed to be spiritual and there's supposed to be a spiritual retreat and you're on the fast track to spirituality, but yet he's got y'all up here partying and drinking and encouraging everybody that it's okay. God said it's okay if we express our sexual desires and the whole nine like that. Ain't nobody questioning nothing. Don't nobody ask any questions about anything. Right? And so I then had the question. I said, let me ask the question. And I'm not being mean. I'm genuinely looking for an answer. Why? What's the point of you want to build the bunker? That's fine. You're preparing for this nuclear holocaust, and so you create this bunker. And I had questions. Okay, many questions. Why? What's the point of having the ammunition? If what they say is true, and there's this nuclear holocaust, and you want to survive because you want to come back out and create this better world, what's the point? What's with the ammunition? And then I thought to myself, I said, what if they say, well, we're going to need it to kill animals. And then I said, wait a minute. So you're going to kill and eat the flesh of an animal that survived a nuclear holocaust? Like that seems okay to you? That makes sense to you? That's okay? There's nothing, you don't question that? No, it's just me? And then I thought, okay, well, maybe they say, well, we need the ammunition and the guns for protection. I said, okay, so it's going to be business as usual. You're not going to come back up and create a beautiful world, a violent free world. You got these guns because God forbid somebody should try to come at my family. I need to protect them. So you're going to go back to killing again, which is the one thing everybody is trying to avoid. I want to get up out of here. It's a young lady who went on YouTube and said she's ready to check out right now because she's so scared of everything she's seen online, not recognizing and understanding that you guys are the first generations who get to see everything that's happening, but not just in your neck of the woods, in the city, in your country, in other states, all over the world. You get to see everything that's happening to everybody all over the world, and you're being bombarded with all of these things. But here's the thing: all of this stuff was going on back in the day. People was dying in other cities and warring in other countries forever, but you didn't have the access to everybody like you do now. And so, yeah, you're being bombarded with all the violence. And yes, you are scared. And yes, you're ready to check out. And I'm telling you, don't do that. You came here, you have purpose. If you are on this planet, you are here to make a difference. So it don't make any sense to try to check out. There's people who came to this planet who had to participate in saving the world against evil in Hitler. And they did what they had to do. Did they want to do it? No, but they did what was right. They signed up. Some people literally lied to get into the army. They said they were 16. Some Tuskegee Airmen. There were airmen who were 16, 15, who wanted to get into the army. They wanted to get away from their situation so bad. And some of them was very patriotic. They legit wanted to go fight and protect the country and protect the world. And they did that. Just like those who incarnated into this lifetime who had to participate in Vietnam War, those who had to participate in the Civil War, those who have to participate in wars and things all over this world. Don't you don't need to check out. Don't think like that. Don't think like that. You just being bombarded with everything that's going on in the world. You just get to see more than there are other people in other generations before you. It's no reason to don't talk like that. Okay? Hang on just a second. Hold on. Yeah, don't talk like that, okay? You're here for a reason. You incarnated into this lifetime for a reason, okay? Don't don't think like that, okay? You're gonna be okay. For anybody who is like that young lady and who thought that way, don't think that way. Is You're gonna be just fine. It's just your turn. You've incarnated a lifetime, a life that's unlike others. You know, we can't even imagine what you guys must be feeling and experiencing. We never had to deal with that, you know. So do not talk like that. Don't think that. Okay. Now getting back to what I was saying about those people who choose to build these bunkers, and I was like, okay, so if you're gonna break out the guns, and that means it's gonna be business as usual again, right? And then I had questions about the whole bunker situation. Like, you don't know how long it takes for, you know what I mean, for a bomb and the effects of that to leave the planet, to clear out the air. You don't know how long you're going to be down there. Let's say you're down there for a year or 2 years, and you're a family of four, and you've got, you know, a little one, and then you've got one that's just about to reach that teenage years. Let's say they're 8, 10, you know, and then everything goes down, and then they're now 8 and 12 or 13, and I posed the question, like, how does this bunker situation supposed to work? Like, I had questions, you know, how much oxygen are you going to need? You can't just exist in a hole. You're going to need oxygen, and then what about the feces, using the bathroom, urinating, getting a period. The wife gets is still of age, and she's getting periods, and then how many tampons can you store? Because God forbid you have the one who's just about to turn a teenager and turns a teenager is a girl. Now you've got to factor in how many boxes of tampons or pads are you gonna need? Because none of this stuff is gonna be here. If the world gets annihilated, everything goes with it, right? Malls, grocery stores, everything. There's no Walmarts, there's no corner stores, there's nothing. So how much do you take? Do you even take that into consideration? We got to try to factor in enough tampons for me, and then this one's going to change, and then she's going to need them, and then what about the little boy, and then the clothes? You guys are trying to preserve your lives so that you could come out and continue living. There's going to be no clothes. How much clothes do you store up? How? Where? How much space do you need for oxygen, for what I mean, for water? How much water do you need? These young ladies are going to get their periods. They're going to want to be clean. They're not going to want to be nasty. Is anybody taking any of that into consideration? We need water to drink. We need water to bathe, because we can't just sit in this hole for a year stinking up a storm, using bathroom and pissing and urinating, and the smell, and where's that going to go? You see what I'm saying? I've got questions. You see what I'm saying? Do years. Then let's factor in, let's say you survive and you make it, and then you got to go out. And it's like, what are you going out to? It's not going to be business as usual. It's like if you take them guns and you start killing, and that aspect is business as usual. If you don't take that into aspect, let's say you factor in everything else. You're going to need clothes. Your children are going to grow. They're going to become adults. They're going to need clothes in their adult lives. There's no stores to go to. You can't go buy no clothes. You can't go pick out no clothes. You see what I'm saying? Are you all assuming that the malls will survive and that the Walmarts will survive, and y'all can just go in there and get those clothes? Because you have to now factor in enough clothes for your lifetime, the man and the mother, father, for their lifetime, because your clothes is going to wear out too. Did you consider that? How much clothes are you guys going to need going into old age, if you even survive that long? And then your children. They're going to go from children into adulthood and long into adulthood. You see what I'm saying? You don't have any idea how many clothes you're going to have to factor in. What if you live in a cold area? How many coats can you buy? Your kids are little. You buying, they're going to grow. There's no factories anymore. Nobody's making clothes. Nobody's making food. You see what I'm saying? Nobody's making axes. There's no metal anymore. Everything is gone. You know what I mean? It's like, I got questions and everybody's mad. Ain't nobody got a damn answer to none of it, right? And think about that. Like, really, how many clothes? Do you have any idea how big your bunker would have to be to accommodate all of that? Enough clothes to go into adulthood and even beyond. You see what I'm saying? Why are you bringing out this ammunition? So we're going back to killing. Eventually, those ammunitions are going to run out because there's no more gun stores. Okay, and then just the overall general thing of, let's say you survive and then you come out into the world. What are you coming out to? It's not going to be business as usual. You're not going to go back out and go to work. You're not going to go back out and go to school. You're not going to go back out and go to church. You're not going back out. There's nothing. What are you going out to? What are you trying to survive? Survive for what? Did you bring enough stuff? Did you anticipate, let's say you want to try to live going into old age? You want to try to start this new world? And did you take any of that into consideration? And then I asked the question, what if you're a man and a woman and it's just you two? And you hunker down. We're going to get through this and we're going to make it. And then you guys are in this hole for a period of time and things get intimate and whoops, you're pregnant. Oh, crap. Now you got to give birth to a baby with no vitamins. There's no vitamins. There's no iron tablets. There's no nurse to help you deliver. It's just you and this person. And you didn't anticipate having children. So there's no diapers. There's no baby clothes. There's nothing. Okay, so you're just gonna give birth to this child and then it's gonna be naked. And I thought to myself, like, there's no diapers, there's nothing. There's no diapers, no clothes, no nothing. You didn't take any prenatal anything. There's no iron tablets. You didn't take nothing. God forbid let's say you are successful enough to have a child. Okay, you are now surviving on canned food. You're surviving on things. You're not getting all the vitamins and all the good stuff anymore. So your baby is not going to be, yeah, you can breastfeed it, but it ain't going to be like the most nutritional stuff. So then you got to deal with that whole thing. It's like, I was like, damn, I got all these questions and ain't nobody got no answers, but they're mad at me for even daring to bring the questions up in the first place. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. There are people who are angry because I'm posing questions that they don't have answers to. They don't know. Why would I do that? We aren't going to have that. How much will we need? God, it would take this. And then there's that. And then what about this? And then what about that? What if your husband says, hey, if I'm going to transition or if I'm going to go down and hunker down, I'm going to make sure that I have enough alcohol to last me a lifetime. And let's say you're in that hole and you're tired of being in a hole and you're drinking a little bit more and you're taking advantage a little bit more of this stuff that was supposed to last you a lifetime. You're a full-blown alcoholic. You're sitting down there and you go crazy. You got the ammunition and then y'all freaking, fight and argue and shoot each other. Like, it's insane. That then bring up the question of, wouldn't it just make more sense to just live the life that God has given you? Enjoy the life in the moment that you are here. And if anything goes down, then just transition back to the other side. Let the Father do what he want to do. Why would you even subject your family if you love them so much? Why would you subject them to that kind of nightmare on the outside chance that you might survive? And then you come out, but you're coming out to nothing. And but everybody's mad. They're saying that I'm wrong. I'm mean. I'm not mean. I'm going to say this. If your child, y'all have seen videos about, Gen Xers who, we grew up in a time when Evel Knievel was around. So y'all have heard about how we would create these crazy platforms and ride our bicycles and try to jump as far as we could because we was thinking like Evel Knievel and all that kind of thing, right? And sometimes we would fall and hurt ourselves and cut ourselves, and you go in there and your mom is patching you up, and she said, what was you thinking? What were you thinking? What made you want to do that? I'm asking questions in that spirit, not to be mean, but to say, what? What? Why would you do that? Why would you let another man tell you what to do? Why would you let this man tell you that? And why would you just go along with it? Why? Like I said, that book, the part where it talks about the rapture, some man created this concept, but we know better. We can think. We have minds. We're intelligent. We know now. There's so many people who are on this planet who could tell you, yes, I have seen my loved ones. I've seen them. I've felt them. I've experienced it. We all know that ghosts exist and spirits are a thing. So armed with that knowledge, why would you then think that, we need to, when we die, we're just going to go on the ground and we've got to wait until the Father's going to bring our bodies up out and make us whole again, when we know for a fact, I know for a fact, I saw my grandmother whole. She wasn't dirty. She didn't climb up out the dirt and come stand before me. She was whole and clean. And because I was so scared to see her in that moment, she came to me the next day in dream form because I was better able to handle her in that state. And I'm sitting here and I'm shocked that she's even here again. But she's talking about, and I remember her saying, oh, everything is just so nice. And so I know that there's another life. We don't just go into the ground and that's it, and rot and that's it. You don't just get cremated and you're just an ash and that's it. We are souls. We're souls. And we leave these avatars here and we transition back to the other side. The concept of a rapture makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I said May prove me wrong. I've seen things. I've experienced things. I know that they're there. I've encountered them. I've you know what I mean? And so I think that it is time that we as a people started asking questions. Ask questions. If you have a question, pose it to your spiritual leader, or your religious leader. And if they can't give you a good answer, then maybe it's time to start, considering that there's something more. There's another option. I'm not here to I'm not here to say that I'm not going to be like these people say I'm God and I'm this and that and the other thing and I'm this and that. I'm none of those things. I'm just here telling you that these are the things that I've experienced, and I know that we don't just go in a hole and rot and that's it. And I know we're whole on the other side. I know we are. And like I said, what would be the point of trying to survive a nightmare marriage situation like that? What would be the point of going underground when you could just say, okay, let's enjoy the life that was given to us by the Most High, by by the Most High that was given to us, and enjoy it. And then whatever happens, happens. And then we just transition back to the other side, let the Father do what the Father needs to do, and then come back. That would make more sense than suffering in a hole. That would make more sense than being miserable. That would make more sense than coming back up and trying to eat the flesh of a mutated, monster, an animal, something that is no longer pure anymore, trying to eat the work, this land that is devastated, decimated, it just... I got questions, and I would invite anybody to give me an answer. It's not a matter, and I think that's what everybody is so angry about. And I will say this as well. I know how Ascended Master Jesus feels. Because look at it this way. The Ascended Master was, Ascended Master Jesus was someone who just wanted everybody to know that the Father is. My Father is, and he was telling everybody and he was teaching everybody and they were following him. And the kings in those days was mad as hell. How dare you suggest another option, another way to believe? How dare you? We came up with this. The king has this set in place. How dare you come in and do that? And they're looking at me the same way. I'm sitting up here saying, you guys, have you asked yourself any of these questions? Has anybody thought about any of this stuff? Is anybody not, talking, asking? You're just going along. You don't think, just read, believe, do. Don't question it. This is what we got set in place. And for me to sit up here and pose these questions and ask these things and to say these things to you guys is making them mad as hell. And how dare you? Our king, this is, those who in England, who very strongly and very vehemently and those all over the world who follow this religious doctrine that was set in place by someone else a long time ago. And how dare you question, and how dare you, and you need to be, and they want to shut it down and they want to shut you up and they're mad. I went to work. You should have seen how everybody was. I was like, wow, okay. I was in my house when I posed that question, but like I said, everybody watches me. They see me. I know they do. I'm not a fool. Everybody watches me. And what's interesting is that in the same way they was trying to throw stones at the Ascended Master, don't listen to him. He's crazy. He's wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about. They wanted to stone him, and drag him through the street. Let's humiliate him. I know that feeling all too well. I got people throwing stones at me right now. And with each stone has a name on it. And they're praying to God that name that they're throwing my way sticks. Because if it sticks, then you don't have to worry anymore. You don't, she's crazy. She's delusional. Great. I can go back to business as usual. I can go back to not questioning anything. I can just keep doing. I don't have to think. I can just do. I don't have to question anything anymore. Those stones stuck to her. Those stickers stuck to her. She's delusional. She's crazy. She's making it up. Those things can't happen. That's this. And then I said, well, what about those things that I talked about? Let's say those things do happen with the bunker and everything. Who is she to question us? Who she's got a lot of nerve and this, that, and the other thing and da 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 da. And she's crazy and she's mean and she's this and she's, and they're saying all this stuff. And I'm saying the same thing to you guys. I'm inviting you to just consider. Ask questions. I'm telling you, I know for a fact that the Father is. I don't have to go to church to know that He is. I don't have to follow a set of rules, I don't have to wear a dress. God still loves me, even if I do put on a pair of pants. God still loves me, even if I don't have the doily on my head. God still loves me, even though I don't have a bunker and I don't have things set up for the end of the world, okay? God still loves me, even though I don't believe in the end days. I don't have to, because I know He is. If whatever is going to be is going to be. And like I said, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I've heard about the end days for so long, it should be in years. It should be in decades now, honestly, in decades. Boy, we're in the end decades now, I've heard it so long, and I'm just saying, maybe it's time to just know that God is. I'm not saying you don't have to go to church if that's your thing. Like I said, at this point, I feel like people who go to churches and synagogues, maybe they just go more for the bonding, for the fellowship. They need to belong to something. They need to believe in something. You could certainly believe in God. Do you have to go? Do I have to get up every morning and file in the church to believe in God? No, I don't. I've seen His hand in my life. I know He loves me. I know He's been watching over me. I know He's been protecting me. And I see people every day. Everybody's coming at me and they trying to take everything from me. Take everything. Take her stamps. We don't want her to eat. Cut her hours. We don't want her to work. We don't want her to pay rent. Cut. Take. Because they're so angry. Everybody's so angry at me for saying what nobody else wants to say out loud. That I know God is. I know He is. I've seen His hand in my life. And they're trying to take away everything that the Father has given to me. But I still believe. I don't know. Somehow, some way, everything is going to be okay. But there are people who are so angry, who just want to, and I'm sorry that you guys are angry. I don't understand what they need to be angry for. Instead of being angry, how about you just consider listening? Why do we do this? Why did we do that? Why are we doing this? What's the point of that? Nobody wants to ask any questions. They just want you to go along. Just do. In this world, in this lifetime, and lifetimes before, they just want you to just follow. But I'm just saying, I would like to invite you to just consider, God loves you. You're here. You incarnated into this lifetime for a reason. You didn't show up just to take up space. You're here for a reason. Some way, somehow, something you do is going to make a difference, whether it's big or small. Like I said, there's some people who come here to do amazing things. And then there are others who agree to incarnate into this lifetime to bear witness to other people's greatness. How are we going to know what great is if there isn't somebody on the other who's on the other side who says, "Oh my God, that's fantastic." God, that guy plays great ball. That guy's a great, that woman's a great singer. That one's a great actress, It's hot in here. Sorry. I let my windows back down. Hot. But anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to just say that, ask the questions. If you're not getting the answers, if nobody's giving you the right answers, then maybe it's time to consider another option. Like I said, I know He is. I know the Father is. I've seen it. You know, I know my guides and my angels are. I've seen their hand in my life. I've seen them assist me. I went from being somebody who just went along just like everybody else. I was just like you guys. So for everybody to get mad, it's like, what are you getting mad for? I was doing the same thing you was doing. I didn't question anything. I went along just like everybody else. And then one day I was awakened. And then I began to take a step back and again to see, and I was like, why is this? And what about that? And why is this? And why is that? I remember at one point somebody, because I was doing tarot and my tarot cards was telling on that person. The person came to me one day and handed me and said, here, what you need is this Bible. What you need is to start reading the Bible and put those cards down and pick this Bible up and read this Bible. Okay. And it wasn't because he wanted me, because he didn't believe what I was believing, is because it was telling on him. You know? But cards do that a lot. They tell me a lot of people. But anyway, that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But anyway, even if I didn't have a cards, my guides and my angels are still there. They're still showing me. They come to me in my dreams, you know. They enable me to think, ask questions, ask the questions that nobody wants to ask out loud. It's time for you to be that spiritual leader. It's time for you to speak up, say something. You see what's happening. Maybe it's time for, just in the same way we woke you up, help us wake others up. You know, maybe if we got rid of all the rules in everybody's everything, if we just took away all the rules, we would all only see each other. And then we would just go from there. We all know God is. We all know there's a supreme being. We've, you know, and we are experiencing things, you know. I just wanted to put that on video because if you're gonna be mad, you can be mad, but my idea is not to hurt you. My idea is the things I'm telling you is I'm not telling you this to tell you you're wrong. I'm just saying, have you not asked those questions? Do you not think those things? None of this is ever, you know what I mean? In the same way they told me you couldn't come into this church unless you got on a dress. Okay, I was here to seek God. Why is that a thing? Why should that even be a thing? There's these rules, and I said, but why? Why? You know, those who go to the Catholic Church and then they say, I need to confess something. Okay, you sit right here. I'm going to go and get with the Father. We're going to decide what you should do. I could do that. I could talk to the Father right now, you know, and then let him answer. Let him show me in his way. But that's one of those questions that I ask that people get mad. They don't want to hear that. They don't ask that. Don't question that. This is, you know, we've been shown this. This is what we've been told. This is how we've been raised. This is what we do. And that's fine. If that's what you want to do that. But for those of you who are strong enough and who say, I want to, those are good questions. Why is that? Why do we do this? Why do we do that? Why should I listen to you? Why are you the be all end all? You know, you know what I mean? For that man to just pop up one day and tell everybody that the rapture is going to occur on this day. And you all are the ones who said that nobody knows the hour and the time of his return. If you go by that, why did you just accept this man's word as gospel? I'm going to leave it right there because it's now 1:03. Nobody's probably going to see. You would probably have to read it and listen to it, stop, listen, stop. But I know nobody's going to listen to the video because like I said, I'm now forcing people to ask questions they don't want to ask. I'm forcing them to think about things they don't want to think about. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to hear that. Stop talking. Shut up. I've been doing this for so long, you know, and they want to keep going. Don't upset the apple cart. And the same way the ascended master went through and he was trying to let people know that the Father was. And they was like, who does that person think he is? He's upsetting the apple cart. We've got this thing in place. Don't question it. The king says, don't question this. And we're going to get you. We're going to fix you for trying to speak up and speak out. How dare you? Who do you think you are? That's what they said to the ascended master. And they're throwing as many stones. They threw as many stones at him and turned on him, and the same way people turned it on me. And I don't have a problem with that. But I did what I came to do, is I speak up, and I would say it again and again and again, because I've seen enough. I've seen enough proof to know that the rapture makes no sense. I've seen enough proof that it doesn't make any sense to go into a hole in the ground when you could just live the amazing life. Focus on. And then here's the other thing, real quick with the bunker, and I'm going to go. Let's say you build this bunker. Let's say you put everything in there and you figure you are good to go. Nobody is going to announce, hey, we're getting ready to send a bomb. We're going to send it at 3 o'clock, so you better hurry up and get your kids to get home. It'll just happen. What if you're at work? You did all of that prep work. You bought all of those things. You wasted all of that money. Your kids are miles from school. It was all for naught. Do you see what I mean? This is what I'm talking about. Like, make it make sense. Make everything I said make sense. I'm going to leave it right there. Maybe that'll give you guys something to think about. Maybe it'll give you something to talk about. All I know is that I know the Father is. I've seen his hand in my life. I didn't have to walk into a church door. I didn't have to wear certain things. I didn't have to do certain things. The only thing, if I just had to, is that, I would, well, yeah, I guess I could say it. Just little things like, if you are going to ascend to higher levels of consciousness, it helps to purge yourself. If you've done something to somebody, say so. If you done something wrong, apologize. If you did something over there, hey, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that to you. I had to tell somebody something when I started on my path. That was one of the things I had to learn. I had to tell somebody something that was the hardest thing in the world for me to even say. I would have rather died than said it. But in order to ascend to that higher level of consciousness, it helps to release. It makes no sense to try. You can't ascend with all this weight of in your closet. Let's let it go. Let's get it out. Let's go. It's time to ascend. It's time, and then I would learn things. They showed me things, try to do the right thing even when nobody's looking and things like that, but that's nothing. That's nothing. It didn't say that you have to wear this and you have to do that. You got to go here at this time and then do that and be this and eat that and drink that and do this and do that. It wasn't that heavy, And then they showed me all these amazing things. And I'm just saying, they would love to show you that they are. For those of you who feel like you don't want to follow all the rules, but you want to know that the Father is, do like I did and just let him, ask him, show me. And the same way you showed her, I want to know those things too. I want to experience things. I want to be where it leaves no question in my mind that happened. And then let him do it. All right, I'm gonna go. I love you guys. I know it doesn't seem like it. I wouldn't be sitting here telling you guys all of this if I didn't. Okay? Just remember that. While you're over there hating and being mad, just remember, that what I'm saying is saying out of love. I want you to just, for those of you who don't want to follow rules, who do have questions and nobody's giving you the answers, then consider it. Consider just, I want a personal relationship with the Father. I want to know that there's anywhere I can't go. There's nothing I can't do. There's no mistake I can't make that I won't be forgiven. There's nothing I can't do. He'll be with me everywhere. It's great to know that my family is on the other side. They have a higher perspective on my life, and that they know the mistakes I'm going to make before I even make them. They even try to warn me a lot of times, and unfortunately, You know, sometimes I made the mistake of looking at a face and going, this little face, and how can that be? But it was, truth was truth. And I said, okay, that's my fault. That was my bad. And I'm learning. Like everybody else, I'm learning. That's why I said, you know, there was a reading I did where they said that nothing is wasted. Nothing's wasted. Even when you mess up, nothing was wasted in that. Did you learn something from it? Yeah, then nothing was wasted. Okay? All right, I'm going to go. I love you guys. I'll see you next time on the next video. Y'all have a great night. Bye.